Welcome to the Peopling Podcast, where we hang out with brilliant human beings who teach us how to be better, well, humans, and decode what makes us tick and click. Inspired by the book Peopling, available on Amazon. Let's get this episode started.
Hey friends, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Peopling Podcast. It is just such an honor to be able to inspire and encourage others through the conversations and experience from amazing people around the country. And today I get to introduce you to my VIP guest and friend, Dawn Sipley. Well, growing up in a single parent household as the caregiver for both her mother and her baby sister, Dawn learned from a very early age how to think independently, to rise to a role of responsibility, and to develop grit and resilience. Her early career experiences in the world of human resources built her expertise in business ownership, entrepreneurship, and everything HR. After hiring everyone from welders to paralegals to C-suite directors, Dawn has learned what it takes to recruit and headhunt for the very best talent across professions and industries. And with years of experience in advising hundreds of companies on how to hire the top talent, Dawn has expertly negotiated millions of dollars of salaries. And with extensive experience in participating in tens of thousands of hiring decisions, Dawn saw a need for professionals, both young and seasoned, to get some extra help and guidance. And that is what we are going to unpack today. Dawn Sipley, thank you so much for being on the Peopling Podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait for people to get to know who you are. We heard a little bit about a little tiny snip of how you wound up being where you are with this resiliency and grit. A lot of things come from childhood, right? So unpack for us a little bit more about who you are and what brought you into this wonderful world of helping people and businesses when it comes to hiring, firing, leading, guiding, and all things HR.
Yeah, so I think since our personalities are formed before the age of 8 or by the age of 8, what a lot of business owners really don't understand is that skill set is just a fraction of the hiring process. And what I was able to cultivate, having been raised kind of like a feral animal by a single mom who was having her own mental health struggles, her own relationship with addiction in a wide variety of ways. I entered the job market in a very different way than a lot of folks entered the job market. And I learned really from the school of hard knocks. And I was able to recognize very early on that I was different. And there were rules that others were abiding by that I did not understand. So at the age of 16, to paint the picture for you, I was emancipated through the courts of Seminole County court system. And so I was deemed a ward of the state and independent. Macaulay Culkin at the time had just divorced his parents. So we have that parallel. He had a little bit more in his bank account than I did. But that's when I realized that getting out of my childhood house was actually possible. So I moved out between my sophomore and junior year of high school, and had already been working for a year, saving up kind of towards that, and had entered the job market. My first job was at a car wash where I learned all kinds of life lessons because car washes are amazing second chance employers, which I am a proponent of. But as a young 15, 16-year-old girl, I learned a lot of lessons working around men at a very early age. By the time I was 23, my mom had passed away. I was just graduating from college, and that's when I received custody of my 16-year-old sister. And she was pretty mad about the whole situation. And if you would have asked me then, I would have said that I was fine. Having a little bit of hindsight behind me, I realized that I really was broken. But what was really interesting, even though I had never had a relationship with my biological father, he had been sent to prison during this time. And one of the ways that he had washed his drug money was through real estate. So he actually wrote me from prison, asked if I would be willing to gain my real estate license and manage his properties. And I was like, well, heck yeah, that sounds like a really cool grown-up job. So I went and took my real estate exam, sat for it, and started to manage his properties. That I did not know the neighborhoods that his properties were in, and back then I was only about maybe 125 pounds, so that really didn't last long, but that's what really opened up my door to this very grown-up world of buying and selling real estate. I was 20 years old, selling houses to what I call grown-ups because I did not feel very grown up at the time, but I had an amazing mentor, a broker that took me under his wing and just said, "All right, Dawn, all you gotta do is show up. You know what's legal, you know what's illegal, you have a strong moral compass. This is how you do it." So this was like circa 2005, 2006, 2007, and so real estate was popping. It was just going off. So I got full-time money for part-time work during that time. But I was able to recognize that these grown-ups were doing some weird things, and I don't think this is sustainable. I remember thinking just how absurd and ridiculous it all was, and then the bubble popped, and then shortly after that, my mom passed, and so everything just got catapulted into this other world, and so I went and got a job, at the mall, Gymboree's kids clothing store. That's when I learned out I was a really good recruiter, interviewer. I'm good at asking questions. I'm good at deciphering whether someone is kind of telling the truth or not. And so that was really the launch of my career, was in this job paying me $15 an hour, figuring out how to build out a retail team. I did a pretty good job, and then Tommy Hilfiger came and like secret shopped me and offered me more money and better benefits and a retirement plan, which I had never had. And it was fun. It was more money, it was more responsibility, but I started to feel like I was lying to people when I told them that I had a great job opportunity for them because it was chaos in that store. God bless them. People were doing dirty bird stuff and dirty bird things, and I didn't enjoy that retail experience because I don't know if you've ever shopped at Gymboree. That's very much a concierge type of service, whereas Tommy Hilfiger and the premium outlets in Orlando, Florida was real estate. So from there, I was like, well, I want to work for the Lord. Forget this retail stuff. I've been seeing all these naughty things going on, and I want to serve him well. So I joined a nonprofit. Well, that's when I realized that I had not been raised in an environment that led me to knowing good business sense. And I struggled in that environment. God bless my HR director there. She was pulling me in probably every other month, giving me a little come to Jesus meeting on, "Oh, sweetheart, we don't do that here." So I look back and it's just embarrassing, the kinds of things that she had to talk to me about that I really should have known. But what I think those moments created for me was just a really tender heart for the ignorant, the blissfully ignorant, because I was not being malicious. I had just never had anyone tell me how these things worked in business, how it worked with boards of directors, how politics worked inside of the environment. I just said the truth no matter what without any kind of filter, and in business, we filter a lot. We filter a lot. We don't necessarily bring our authentic selves to work. We bring our professional selves to work, right? I don't want the real you. I want the professional you. Let's not kid ourselves. So from there I realized that wasn't working out. And so I let my ego take over, and I was like, well, I want to make more money and I want to work with people who are smarter than me and make more money than me. And that's when I got into laser recruiting. And I worked for this organization where I became a headhunter, working on recruiting engineers from all over the nation to come here to Central Florida. That's where I got the tenacity of dialing for dollars, right? Recruiters make a lot of phone calls. All of that kind of accumulated and led me to the world of staffing because I had worked in high volume, I had worked in nonprofit, I had worked in technology, and I was obviously, right, the octopus. I was a chameleon to whatever environment that you put me in, and that made me perfect for the staffing world. And I spent 12 years there in staffing. So, it was just nothing but God's grace in placing me in these different seasons and these different circumstances, and me just showing up really curious, willing to learn, understand the why behind why businesses were doing what businesses were doing. And I didn't lead with a lot of assumptions that I knew what I was doing at all, because I felt like a fish out of water 90% of the time when it came to my working environment.
Love this. I love your backstory. I love that you got to have a little bit of a taste of all different kinds of things, right? And so that helps you be this amazing, well rounded person now coming from the HR perspective. But you're not like an HR manager sitting inside of one corporation.
Right.
You get to serve in all these different organizations and different industries kind of on a fractional basis. So break down for our audience what that actually means. But more importantly, I want to know like what drives you in this? What excites you about that? Maybe even from both perspectives, like for the organizational side and also for the people that you're serving to marry them to the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
organizations.
Absolutely. So after 12 years in staffing, what I figured out was my favorite clients were the ones who were like, Dawn, how did you find that candidate so quickly? Or how did you find us such a high quality candidate? I've had so many bad hires. Those were the ones that I wanted to teach, but in staffing, right? You got to keep your secret sauce a secret because you only get paid if the person gets hired. If I taught them how to do it themselves, I would be out of a job. So learned was a lot of sleazy companies were attracted to staffing. They were like, I don't like this one. Send me a new one. Like these people were widgets. And I knew I didn't want to do business anymore. And so that's really what gave me the idea for Sipley the Best, an HR consulting company who could teach a man how to fish, attract their own talent, bring them in, love them well, do uh, amazing leadership things with their people so they wouldn't need staffing companies rather than just giving them a fish for the, oh, you need a person, here's a person with no real long thought about how that person was going to work out. And so the fractional idea was just very appealing to me. It's also very appealing to me because I do enjoy a little bit of chaos. I am in and out of different companies, you know. I work with manufacturing companies, construction companies, locally owned insurance agencies. So I get to be that different person in all these different environments and really walk with those leaders on how to attract talent in a way that's going to create a culture that makes the workplace a better place. Because for me, my why is if we're not completely sucked dry at the end of our day from our jobs, then we can go home and be really healthy spouses and amazing parents and even members of our community. And so that's really the why behind what I do is empowering employers to create an environment that doesn't take everything and deplete everything from their people, but instead really fortifies them financially, fortifies their mind, in them to fortify their spirit. So for me, that's really what drives me into going into these different businesses because even if I'm there for 6 months, a decade from now, I'm hoping that they feel the impact of what I created for them.
That's absolutely extraordinary. Something you said really resonated with me. If we're not aligned right? We're not in the right position or in the right space, we can go home just completely depleted. And then there's nothing left. Like our family gets the rest of us, not the best of us. And
Right.
I love that that's a goal of yours of aligning not only the right talent and the right company, but also like, is this the right skill set for you? Where you almost come home rejuvenated. Like I gave it my best and man, I'm on fire because of it, right? I love that. Okay. So peopling well is all about communication and relationships and showing up authentically and supportingly for each other. When we're not in the right space, when we're not in the right job or the right industry or the right anything, it shows up in almost everything else in our life, right?
Absolutely.
It can strip us down of our purpose. It can help us feel in a way that's not as life giving as what we want. I want to go back to your young 20-something-year-old version of you, if you could tap into her for a moment, because there are people that are going to be listening to this right now, and they're going to say, "I haven't had any real formal training. How do
Mm.
how do I know what to say and what not to say? How do I know to be professional version of me when I show up every day?" And we learn from the models and examples around us, but let's face it, a lot of them aren't great models and examples. So, what would you say would be some skills that you would encourage somebody maybe younger in their career, maybe younger in life, to really lean into and put their energy towards that could help them really expedite their path through their careers and their work life?
One, I would say to assume good intention of those that are around you. There's a lot of folks living in this life that feel like the world is out to get them. And they might have been raised in an environment where not even their parents were protecting them. And so it's no surprise that they may feel that way. And then two would be a seek to understand what might have motivated someone to do what they did, to say what they did, because oftentimes, especially in the world of business, there's a lot going on that you have absolutely no clue about. You are 100% in the dark, and it's probably a good thing, right? We don't need to know everything. We don't have the right to know everything. And oftentimes, gossip is just a form of self-protection. We're just trying to figure out like who's on our team and who's not on our team and who can be trusted and all those types of things. But unfortunately, a lot of those types of conversations lead to a breakdown of trust. Because if you're going to say it to me, you're probably going to say it about me. And so then that's where the cliques start to form and that's where distrust starts to happen. I have some working environments where we have cameras inside and out of the business. We can monitor emails, we record phone calls, and it's very fascinating the type of culture that creates where there's other people who have a great amount of autonomy and really no oversight at all. And what people fail to do on both sides of the employment fence during the interview process is truly discover what the culture of the organization is. I often tell job seekers, ask for a tour of the facility, even if it's a basic office and they're just showing you four walls with different decor in there. But check out the break rooms and the bathrooms because those two spaces will really denote like how much care and attention that employer is bringing to things. Then also to find out what caused your position to become available. A lot of people don't ask that question. Did someone get fired? Well, that's good information to know. What's it take to get fired around here? Or did someone quit? What would cause someone to quit this amazing job that's being pitched to me? Or did someone die? That's great information to know because your coworkers are going to receive you in a very unique way. And there's certain delicacies that you need to take when easing in to that role. And so just really seeking to understand, knowing where your place is, knowing where your boss wants you to show up and how they want you to show up. It's not necessarily the person who has the best idea. It's the person who has the best rapport with leadership. Oftentimes, the most talented people can fall on deaf ears and be overlooked just because they haven't figured out how to communicate in a way that leadership like trusts and really wants to open up the door to. So that would really be kind of my advice on how to move forward through those situations.
Extraordinary. So let me ask you a question from an HR perspective. When somebody has a challenge with a boss, an authority figure, the business owner, whatever the case is, and they just can't seem to stop like headbutting, is that an opportunity for you to come in and help with communication? And if so, like, do you see a pattern that most people kind of, well, this is where the breakdown often comes in, that by knowing this insight, maybe we can create our own workaround?
Often it falls to training. Bosses, leaders will call me and say, Dawn, I need you to come in. I just can't get this team in alignment. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. They should know their jobs. They're professionals. I should be able to trust them more. But I'm finding myself doubting and double checking everything that they do and becoming a micromanager. Then when I go to the people and go, what can we do to make your job easier? They go, let me know what my job is, what you want and how you want it and when you want it. Like all he does is bark back how it should have been done, but never gives clear direction on the front end on how he wants it done. And so I would really say training, being authentic in how you want to be communicated with. I have a leadership statement when I hire my folks. I tell them my pet peeves. I tell them how they can really irritate me. And then I tell them, what I can do or my kind of communication that I have found irritates other people. I'm a very direct communicator. I like to find out what I'm going to say right along with everybody else. I jokingly say, and I'm just very open in that way. I don't massage a lot of my messaging in a way that makes things palatable at times, and people can find that a little off-putting. Some find it very refreshing because they always know where they stand with me. So I try to be very transparent on what my pet peeves are, and then have the emotional intelligence about what kind of qualities that I have that would irritate other folks. 9 times out of 10, when jobs aren't going well, it's because of personality conflict, not because of an inability to actually perform the essential job duties. So it's really getting a meeting of the minds and breaking it all down to, these are my expectations and this is how I want it. There's way too many leaders out there that say, I hired a professional, they should just know. It's like, well, they've had wonderful success with past employers because the communication style was a little bit different, versus where they're at now, there's a little bit of a rub. But at the end of the day, a lot of people think that separation of employment is like a failed venture. It's not. A separation of employment is just that. It's next. Long gone are the days of pensions and gold watches. I said that to a young person the other day, and they're like, what are you referring to? They don't even know what pensions and the custom of like giving a gold watch at like the 30-year anniversary or something like that. So there's going to be a separation of employment, and quitting well, terminating well, being the catalyst of that separation of employment is just vital. At the end of the day, we want us to be able to see each other on the street in our community, because we obviously live in the same community, and it not make us go, to be able, hey, Jim, it's good to see you. Great. How are the kids? Da, 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 and then move about your business. But we don't want to have a separation of employment that causes us that guttural reaction of like, oh,
I love everything about what you just said. The communication of your leadership style, your communication style, the expectations. And I do see that. I see where a lot of business owners or companies will just hand somebody, an employee handbook. Here's the expectations of working with and inside of our company, and here's your job duties. Go get it. It's like,
yeah.
I need something a little bit more than that. So that is extraordinary what you said, because I feel like a lot of people struggle from day one because they're not properly, I guess it's called onboarded. I
Right.
think a lot of times business owners think like, oh, here's the things in writing and follow this and we'll be good. But then they don't actually say some of the things that you said. For your own employees, you explain to them what how your communication style is. I think that is so relevant and so important, and could probably keep a lot of nightmare conversations and situations from happening. Love that. Absolutely love that. So, what would you say are a couple of shifts or upgrades that we can do, either from the employee's perspective or the employer's perspective, where we can really elevate how we show up in the workplace?
I would say that one of the biggest things we can do to shift is to lead with curiosity, true curiosity, not, hey, how are you today? But like, what are you looking forward to right now? Or what was the best part of your week? Ask different questions. When I'm out and about, sometimes I'll hear back from someone that I met at a networking event, and they just think I'm the coolest thing ever. And I didn't really say much. I allowed them to talk, and I just asked really curious questions, and then they think I'm brilliant. They walk away with this feeling, right? We make decisions based on feelings, and you need to be cognizant, whether you're the leader or the employee, how do people feel when you enter a room, when you exit a room, when your name pops up in their inbox? What do they feel when they see that they're about to interact with you? And then how do they feel when they're done with you? I think that's why you're one of my favorite people, is when I depart your presence, I always feel a little bit uplifted. I feel a little bit more positive and seen and encouraged. And I feel like I have a cheerleader in the community, where there's other people that are in the same circles that you and I swim in, live by the same values essentially, but I know that they're going to try to sell me something, they're going to try to pitch me something, they're going to tell me about their next project or their next event or anything like that, and then they skirt away. When I see them coming, I always go, and isn't that awful? Like, I never, Lord help me, never be that person that makes people wince or turn the other way and try to look a little busy to avoid the interaction. So I think the best success isn't how smart you are, how fast you are, how right you are, or articulate you are, but your success will come from how you make people feel in the presence of you.
I absolutely cherish what you just said. People have an insight of who you are based on the experience of what you gave to them. I love that. What a beautiful snapshot. Most of us don't even think it's truly that simple. How are people experiencing you? And if you don't like how you might be showing up to somebody because you have an ultimatum of selling something, or you got something that is kind of self-serving rather than serving others or solving for others, that's gonna show up completely different in the world and just the experience of you. That is brilliant. Now, you went back and I want to go back for just a second because you had said something that really resonated with me. To start with curiosity. So a lot of times we find ourselves being attracted to people who are just like us, right? It feels safe. I feel like I know you because I kind of know myself. But there are a lot of people out there in the world that are different from us. And if we could start with that curiosity, we could actually find more similarities than differences. When it comes time for interviews or promotions or just being a good human inside of this department or being the best employee that you can be, what's a couple of suggestions you could provide for our audience that could help them in this way if they do see differences in personality, communication styles, backgrounds, culture, any of that?
Assumption is just the thief of understanding. Seeing someone and just thinking that you already have them figured out, or you know their lived experience, or you understand who they are, or what they're motivated by, or what they're fearful of. It eliminates it. It erodes it completely. And a lot of people take interactions as kind of like a tennis game. I'll ask a question, you'll answer a question. I'll receive that question as the whole answer. And it's the first response is never really, honestly, the whole truth. It's usually the PC answer, the easy answer, especially if there's already a low level of trust because you maybe don't know this person. So one thing that I like to do to practice curiosity is ask a great question, right? And you can have a pocket full of them at any given time. But then when they answer, you go, really? Tell me more about that. That's fascinating. And what else about that has interested you? And is that the only thing? Well, where did you get that from? How did you figure that out? And where did that come from? And that really works for you? What has your experience been that people have, so just digging and digging and digging, and instead of a conversation just being this tennis game where we just are pinging the ball kind of back and forth, we kind of slow it down and allow it to go a little bit deeper and to understand why they're a Democrat or a Republican, or they think that way, or they hate this policy. And what was that, how you were raised, or is this a new belief? What experience did you have to make you react that way? So when I say seek to understand, it's not just ask the question, get the answer, and now you know. It's the good stuff is usually about question 3 or 4.
I love that. Want to shift gears just a little bit. I get to see some of your fun little social media posts. So we're going to get real and a little raw for a second.
Okay.
Made mention a couple of times when you were so hopeful about a candidate or a situation or a possibility of something fitting really well. And then somebody shows up a certain way, right? They show up late and they show up unprepared. They don't show up at all, right? Or have said this in the past, and forgive me for anybody who's getting ready to graduate with their 4-year degree from college, and I might offend you with this. There's this mindset that I've noticed that's catching on, or maybe has caught on, where somebody feels like maybe they just got out of school and now I should be the CEO.
No.
My generation anyway has been you work your way up. It doesn't mean that you have to start off cleaning the toilets, right? But we work our way up. And when you make it to the top, you're not excluded from cleaning those toilets, right? You get to take on all of those job duties at some point in time to do whatever it takes to get there. And I would love to suggest that everybody has that whatever it takes mentality, but we know that that's not true. So what are Can you give us one or two things like, please avoid this at all cost if you are interviewing with a new company, trying to have a conversation with your leadership about a promotion,
Mm.
something that we like need to avoid? Can you share that with us?
Yeah. So, in regards to promotion or getting the job, you're kind of a couple things. One, remember that the position is compensated, not the individual. It's not about you. It's about a business who has a problem, who needs a solution, and a good boss will know the quantitative value, the salary of said problems and solutions. You can come to the table with a plethora of degrees or experiences and all that kind of thing, but unless you've had impact solving those problems, then you just don't have any value. It's not that you're not valuable, it's that the position is compensated, not the individual. And I think a lot of people, job seekers who have never held leadership roles, don't understand that. And then the second thing would be when asking for like raise or promotion, they don't come to the table prepared. They come with nothing but their little crazy thoughts on how they're worth more. Inflation has happened. I've been here a certain amount of time. Well, congratulations. You've done your job, you get to stay. That doesn't mean tenure doesn't mean raises necessarily. So consider the impact that you have on the organization. Be able to quantify money that you've made the company, money that you saved the company. Time is money. So also the impact that you've had across time on the organization, areas that you've streamlined, and actually come to the table with like something, a thing, and I mean a physical thing. Print it out. And instead of asking the question, can I get a raise? Because now you have a yes, no answer. You've pushed your boss up against the thing and said, can I or can I not have this raise? But instead pose the question, what do I need to do around here to earn a raise? Help me to understand what you value, what the company values, to be able to have the right to ask for more money. I'm invested in this organization. I hope that I've shown that through my 5 years of tenure. And I continue to want to be here and to level up. And I know that I can't do that unless I'm increasing my value to me. Sir, what can I do to bring the most value to the table, to your organization, so we can have a mutually benefiting agreement?
That is extraordinary advice. I'm going to cut that out, make sure that we share that. Is such extraordinary guidance. Just the repositioning of the word changes the entire situation and probably the outcome too. It shows your dedication, your commitment, your strive, all of it. It's extraordinary. Dawn, that was fire right there. I think that's probably going to be the one of the biggest takeaways. You've said some amazing things already.
What gives your employer an opportunity to fantasize about you and them in the future? So they go ahead and start creating what that looks like in their mind. And if your boss sees you in the future, then you're just more likely to have success.
Before we dive any deeper into this conversation, I want to take a quick moment to share a tool that has significantly improved my life, and that's called Growth Day. It's like having world-class mentors right in your pocket. There are daily challenges that help grow your confidence, your inspiration, and your drive. Check out the show notes for your link to a free trial, and don't let another moment pass you by without checking out Growth Day. That's right. What company doesn't want to have somebody who's committed, solving problems, bringing benefit, earning their keep, if you will, right? I love that. Anything else that you want to add on to that, maybe from the employer's perspective or anything else that hits you?
Yeah, I would say also one other area that I see is oftentimes a lot of employees come to the boss with the problems and they think that that's really good. That's like, oh, there's a problem and there's a problem. Go ahead, boss man, go solve them. Where it is our duty and responsibility as employees to minimize problems and to make problems go away. If you help your boss have a better day, then they are going to really appreciate you. I have been at the table where mass layoffs are happening, and it's not the MVP that always gets saved from the chopping block. It's often the person who comforts the boss, who brings solutions to the boss. So rather than be the person who points out problems, instead be the person that points out solutions. Hey, I noticed that our gross profit has done this, and that, or I've noticed we've had a couple of bad Google reviews and they've all been related to this, and that. I was thinking about it last night over dinner, while I was laying in bed, and I kind of came up with a couple ideas. Could I share them with you? Ask permission to share it. So instead of, did you see all those bad Google reviews that we have? Boss man, what are we going to do about it? Come to the table with some of those solutions. And because decision fatigue is real. We are not as brilliant as you think we should be. We know that. And imposter syndrome is real. And so we need a collaborative effort to make this company better for all of us.
That is extraordinary advice. It's okay to point out the problems, but bring some solutions. Your perspective is something that your boss or leadership may not have even considered, didn't even have the bandwidth to think of, or couldn't see it from your perspective. And when you bring that point of view, that's bringing power along with you. And they may not take your solution as the solution. They don't have to. But just to see and hear that you're exploring different, ideas and suggestions, that has to go so far.
Yeah.
That's great advice. All right, sister, we're coming to the end of our time. And I want to ask you our question for the Be the Change Challenge. So part of the Peopling book talks about how we can be the change in the world, right? It's easy to talk about some things, but how do we put change into effect? And so what is one thing that you can share with our audience today that they can put into action this week that helps us with our connection, our communication, and just being a better human in the world?
That's such a great question. I would say living in a world that's so polarized by conflict, don't participate. You don't have to be right. If the answer was easy, we wouldn't be in this global crisis. And just excuse yourself from those audiences. It's cheap. All this screw the other side stuff is just cheap conversation. I don't put myself in the world where there is an abundance of negativity. I just have to remove myself from those conversations, from that gossip. And listen, it's easy. It's easy to kind of fall into, and I'm not saying that I'm innocent of not falling into it myself, but just don't participate. And there's some great one-liners that you can do to say, I'm not participating in a kind way that doesn't make you seem too good for the conversation or whatnot. And something along the lines of, well, I'm not fully educated on that, so I don't have an opinion. That's not something that I've really been able to focus on in this season, and so I'm not able to speak to that. I haven't discussed that with that other person, so I'm not comfortable discussing it with you. Would you like me to go back with them and get some clarity? Because you sound confused. You can do it in a whole variety of different ways, kind of depending on the circumstance. So, I haven't heard anything about that, and it's not really something I'm interested in diving into, So just don't participate in cheap conversation, because at the end of the day, people are watching and looking and seeing how you navigate in this world and who you navigate it with and the company that you keep, because their reputation, will stick to you in a certain kind of way. So just be careful of the rooms that you stand in.
I love that. Be of good character. I love that. That's extraordinary advice. And my gosh, what would those discussion forums and social media look like if we weren't hiding behind a keyboard and feeling this artificial confidence? And it's a different form of bullying sometimes that I see out there, and we don't have to participate. Love this. Thank you.
I've literally driven to someone's house over a social media post and said, "Hey, I heard you needed some clarity on something. I saw you had put it out in front of the entire world. Let's talk about it." Oh, they just didn't, about came unglued. They didn't know what to do. And it's like, no, we're going to hold people accountable with the tone of seeking to understand and resolve, not to be right or to be pompous, but help me understand.
Curiosity over judgment goes so far, and conversations is the lacking there. So I love that you went over there and said, let's have a conversation about it. We're not just going to go into this, little fist fight in word punch on social media. I love
Right.
that. That's character right there. It's extraordinary.
Well, it's biblical. We're to take our grievances to the individual first, and then if we can't be resolved one on one, then we bring in, respected leadership. And the same goes in business and in life. Either fix it between you two. So many conflicts come to me, and I'm like, "Well, did you tell her how much that hurt your feelings?" Well, no, that's just an absurd thing to say. And what did you say when she said it? I was just so astonished, I didn't know what to say, so I just left the room. Well, why don't you go have a conversation with her first and then come back to me before you pay me good money to resolve something that is elementary? It's just offense. We're all going to be offended. It's how we work through conflict, who speaks to who we are.
Yeah. You've given us so much from leadership styles, communication ways, being authentic and having conversations as opposed to sharing judgment, asking questions through a true lens of curiosity. How did you come to believe that? Tell me more about that. What fascinates you about that? Those kinds of questions that leads to a true, authentic connection and outcome where you don't have to agree with the other person. You don't have to follow what they say, but you understand the perspective that they're coming from. And if we could just have a better understanding of why people believe what they believe, again, we don't have to side with each other, but that clarity helps me understand why you're passionate about that, why you show up that way. Just that understanding helps people feel seen and heard and visible in the world. And sometimes I think the anger or the lashing out or the judgment is because sometimes people just don't feel seen or heard any other way. So they're like, well, I'll show you.
And then once we understand who they are and where they come from, we can decide what orbit to keep them in. Are they a close person in our inner circle? Are they a community acquaintance? Are they someone that we just don't interact with? It's your choice to decide the level of intimacy that you have with another person. So you don't have to agree with them to be polite and to be professional.
Extraordinary. You've left us with so much. I have a feeling anybody listening to this will be able to show up more powerfully in their workplace, right? And be the leader, be the type of character that you want of yourself, raising the standards around you and being the one that's being the model and the example for others to learn from. And now you've got some additional tools in order to do that. So Dawn Sipley with Sipley the Best, you are an amazing human being. You're an amazing community leader. And I love what you do, the impact that you have in businesses and on behalf of the extraordinary people that you get to represent and helping in all of these HR roles. Any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share before we part ways?
Just enjoy life and don't cultivate a life that has a destination. Instead, just make a bunch of really good Tuesdays. Just balance it out. And I think you'll find a lot more joy in your everyday if you just are present for that moment.
Awesome, deep advice. Sometimes we want the big splashes to happen all the time. They're not going to happen all the time. You can have an amazing day just because it's a Tuesday.
Exactly.
I love that, my friend. Thank you so much. And to those listening, check out the show notes. You can connect with Dawn there. We've got all of her social media links, her website, and I know that she can have a continued impact on you and your life if you connect with her on social media or through her website. Dawn, thank you so much for being here. It's extraordinary being able to talk with you and extract all of your amazing wisdom. And until next time, my friends, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for tuning in to the Peopling Podcast, and grab your copy of the Peopling book on Amazon, and let's keep this connection movement going. Until next time, be curious, be kind, and keep peopling like you mean it.